morning. Welcome on this Insights Consulting webinar on the Customer Journey Revolution. I'm Christophe and I'll talk you today through a framework and a couple of cases on how companies bring in truly consumer-centered thinking within their company and also make sure they start acting much more departing from a customer perspective. Afterwards, my colleague Delphine will take over and she will share the work we do for Volkswagen on digitalizing their journey. And she will show how, building upon principles of service design, Volkswagen is really establishing a new customer experience practice. We are very happy to take your questions, so please shoot your questions to either our email address of marketing@insightsconsulting.com or type them into the chat box. In the end of the session, we'll run through them and give you our thinking. Now, what's the starting point of the story? The starting point is that actually companies can truly benefit if they will be less outside in, but more outside in. As such, they will be much more in tune with changes and trends in their industry. It will be better connected with evolving needs of their customers. As such, they will be less vulnerable for disruption. Makes sense, but of course not very easily to make things happen within a corporate environment. So what does it take for marketeers and customer experience professionals? For them, it's really important to avoid getting blinded by touch points. Why am I saying this? So many companies have a very mature practice in place of ongoingly measuring touch point satisfaction, but also managing and improving touch point satisfaction. Of course, that makes really good sense because through these touch points, a company provides value and develops experiences towards its customers. On the other hand, there's a danger of somehow getting an overemphasizing of a company's focus on these touch points, because these are your touch points, what you manage, but where are the customers? For market researchers, it's really important to review their traditional customer experience research programs if they mainly consist of big trackers. If it's mainly about hundreds and thousands of customers who fill out surveys every single day, assessing the quality of touch points, we often see that middle management loves it because they get dashboards, there are action standards, and if they surpass, they get bonuses, but often it really fails in bringing in true consumer understanding within the company. So we believe this kind of big tracking studies, they need some updating or they need some additions to become truly impactful. Customer-centered companies to us take always a consumer-centered perspective first on three different dimensions. First dimension is they do not start from touch points, but they do journey mapping. By mapping all the different phases people go through in the journey, and by also pinpointing the moments in the journey that matter most, they can really make sure they get some focus and really strategy in customer experience management. Let me give you a simple example of KLM. I guess you know KLM, the Dutch airline company, who a couple of years ago noticed that the quality of transfer was going down. So they came to Insights Consulting for some advice on what they could do to improve the quality of transfer. We did engage a couple of frequent travelers who, through research community, were asked to take us along their different transfer experiences. So they were asked to blog, send pictures, share videos of important moments, whether they were about bad experiences, positive experiences related to transfer. We had expected an enormous lot of stories when people were in the transfer airport, but quite surprisingly, we got maybe an equal amount of stories in of people who were actually still in the inbound flight. So it's quite clear. Anxiety on transfer kicks in when people are not yet landed within the transfer airport because they are very unsure what gate they should go to, how to get there, will they have sufficient time? So learning lesson to KLM is the moment of truth, the transfer is not necessarily on the ground, it's actually even before in the journey when people are still in the air. And that was then also the focus for KLM to develop new touch points and develop new transfer experiences earlier in the journey. Now let's look at this electric drill. Assume you are the product manager of this company and you are tasked to come up with a plan to improve the quality of people's experience using this drill. What could you do? I think we could do different things. One could say, hey, we should cover it so it's safe to use. You can make it cordless and lighter, so it's easier to handle. You can make it more powerful. So a lot of different product features that we could come up to improve the product. But in the end, are people actually interested in these features? They just want to have that hole in the wall. That's their job to be done. That's why they're interested in using a drill, not the features, but the effect. Their job is at the core. And maybe even this company is not in drilling holes, this company is in the business of reliving memories, because people drill a hole in the wall because they want to hang pictures of relevant moments in their life, of the birth of their kid, of a very nice holiday their family just experienced. So this should be the dominant perspective of a company, not your solution, not a product or service, but the underlying needs that drives people behavior or drives adoption of your service. TUI is a company that truly has understood this. So TUI is the European leading tour operating company, and they have a customer satisfaction study in place that dates back to 1974. So more than 40 years they are measuring satisfaction on key touch points across the whole journey. But what have they seen over time? That the relative impact of any improvement on satisfaction on actual business results was almost getting back to zero. So that means that somehow they were missing out on something. And we were asked to help them to understand what should then be kind of the main driving focus on customer experience management. And we did actually quite similar study as we did for KLM. Through a research community, we engaged a number of TUI customers, and we asked them to get us along their experiences on different phases of the journey. Again, they were asked to blog, to share pictures, to write about great experiences or quite negative experiences. And with quite a lot of information about all these different stories that helped us to really look behind these actual stories. What drives people experience, positively or negatively. And in the end, we were able to identify more than 30 different consumer needs that play the role in different phases of the journey. And what is the key outtake? That in the end, it's not about touchpoint satisfaction, it's about the ability for TUI to address underlying needs. So it's not about the extent people are satisfied about the way TUI confirms booking. No, it's about the extent that TUI makes that people feel excited after booking and they really look forward to their holiday. It's not about the satisfaction on the hotel. No, it's about the extent that people feel when they're at the hotel, they can really escape their daily routines. So the consumer understanding of the needs should be at the core, not the touch points. But we can even further stretch this. Until now, I was talking about consumers. I was talking about customers, but actually we should talk about people, because people only buy things and consume things in a couple instances a day. For the rest of the 24 hours a day, they're just people. So that makes that as a company, also in the way we communicate, we should somehow shift gear. We should shift from telling about what we're good at, our brand promise, to telling about what makes us relevant in people's life. How can we improve the quality of people's lives? So it's more about purposeful communication. You might know Unilever, the FMCG giant, and they're really taking this at heart. They over time shift all their brands from promise brand to purposeful brands. And one of their brands is Omo. You might know this washing detergent brand, and they recently launched a very successful campaign, Dirt is Good. What's the idea? They were not talking about and bragging about the superior quality of the product. No, they were actually sharing the message that it's great if your kids can play outside, if they can get dirty, and as such they learn a lot, they discover new things, and that really adds a lot of value in their development, and it also makes you a great parent. And over time they see that the brands like Omo, that they shift from promise to purposeful, also get way better results in terms of brand growth and brand profitability. So that makes our third level in our consumer centricity model. Try to think and work beyond the boundaries of our industry and the journey, but what can we do to become relevant in people's life? So truly consumer-centered companies that always take that customer-centered perspective first. They do not start from the touch point as the solutions, but they map the journey and understand what are the key moments of truth. For these key moments, they understand the needs they should work upon, and they even know how to become relevant beyond that journey, become more relevant in people's life. Now, what is then the implication for a contemporary research program? As I said before, trackers often fail to really be impactful. To us, a successful research program on customer experience management starts with understanding the journey. Map the different phases people go through and really pinpoint the moments that matter most to you, but also that will help you to deliver against your key business objectives. Once you know these moments of truth, these should inform then a customer experience innovation program. They should be inspirational towards ideation, coming up with new ideas for new experiences, and make sure then you include consumer feedback at different stages of concept optimization and prototyping. And of course, there's still room for tracking, because in the end, of course, you need to know to what extent you really have impact with these new experiences you develop. Is the quality of the experience good? What's the impact on your business results? What are the things you can do to further improve the quality of that experience? Now, the challenge for any company to do this is that you are actually in an industry that is extremely rapidly evolving at a pace never seen before. It will use the market research methods of before. Likely you will get surpassed by your competitors. So to avoid this, companies are really looking for new tools, new methodologies. And that also makes that service design practices are now rapidly adopted. And these are just a couple of very powerful publications related to service design. You might know others, but to us they all boil down to the same underlying principles. One is make sure that you embrace agility. You need to speed up your innovations process. You need to speed up the pace in which you go to the market. Go faster. Secondly, bring in a culture of experimentation. It's absolutely okay to launch a prototype, to launch a beta product, which is maybe not yet finished. Do this in a controlled way and make sure you collect feedback so you can further improve. So it's about installing that loop of testing, learning, adapting, testing, learning, adapted. Thirdly, make sure that all teams that are needed to develop and successfully bring an innovation to the market are engaged as from the start. They do this together as a joint responsibility. So you need to bridge different functions and work cross-functional from the start. And that will also make that everybody will unite around the same understanding of the insight. What is the underlying need that will make a new customer experience relevant within the market for your customers? On the back of these principles, Volkswagen has established a new customer experience practice, which Delphine will talk you through.
Hi there, my name is Delphine and I'm really happy to share today with you this exciting research program that we rolled out for Volkswagen Group Poland on digitalizing and help them in digitalizing their pre- and after-sales journey. It's now about 2 years ago that Artur Kryzan, the customer experience director from Volkswagen Group Poland, reached out to us and shared his business challenge with us. I will give now the floor to Artur to explain to you what exactly this business challenge was.
Hi there, my name is Artur Kryzan, and I am the Customer Experience Manager for the Volkswagen brand in Poland. And for the last 2 years, I've had the incredible pleasure of working with Insights Consulting in our Customer Journey Revolution program. The Customer Journey Revolution for the Volkswagen brand you all know, because after all, we are the golf guys. We are the people that have been telling you we have the answer for all your automotive questions for the last 40 years. But as 10 years ago, I would say definitely go for a Volkswagen. We have the best cars, and it is something that I would still tell you today. I must say that our competitors have really prepared for the lesson, and they are making excellent cars as well. as the automotive market, and all the markets for that matter, are getting more and more homogenic, where you need to find your point of difference is the customer experience. And how we did that, I let the guys from Insight speak.
So basically the objective of the research program was to come with new consumer-centered customer experience solutions. So it was really crucial for both the teams, both the Volkswagen Group Poland team and Insights Consulting, to start from the consumer, to start from the needs in order to come with truly disruptive and new innovations in the market. The other objective was to have impact through the business, so meaning that we would not only focus on those needs, on those pain points in the journey that are really important for the customer, but they also needed to result in immediate business impact, meaning that we needed to boost sales conversion along the customer journey. At the same time, the research program also needed to be some kind of a starting point of a transformation process. We needed to install a truly consumer-centered mindset in the heads of people working at Volkswagen Poland, coming from headquarters staffing up until people working into the dealerships. And at the same time, we also needed to install some kind of solution that is scalable, that could be easily rolled out to other brands and to other markets. Central in our approach was the jobs to be done theory. We use this as some kind of central framework, and basically it boils down to the fact that we break down the pre- and after-sales journey in smaller jobs to be done, where every job to be done is a specific moment in the journey where a specific need arises. And the difference with this consumer-centered journey mapping is that we start from the need in the journey rather than from existing processes and existing touch points. A typical job to be done in the pre-sales journey, for instance, is I want to experience the car before I buy it. If we would look at this from an internal perspective, we would say, okay, this is typically the moment in the journey where consumers need a test drive. However, by looking at the journey from a needs perspective, I want to experience the car before I buy it, this allows us to come up with new solutions beyond the current touchpoints. For instance, we could come up with some kind of virtual reality solutions where we experience the car at home or at the dealership in a virtual reality. Or we could even come up with some kind of community of peers driving already the car that you intend to buy, so that you can tap into this peers community, that you can make an appointment and do the test drive together with consumers rather than with a salesperson. So this was really opening up our thinking and making sure that we could come with truly new ideas rather than optimizing existing touchpoints. When looking at the program we rolled out, we focused really on developing this consumer-centered strategy starting from journey mapping and prioritizing on needs in the journey, and we use this as some kind of starting point for our ideation and our idea selection, and later on agile prototyping with concepts. Central in our approach was our consumer consulting square. This ensured that we could bring in this consumer voice 24/7, so we have at all time a pre-selected group of Volkswagen owners and Volkswagen considerers at our disposal, and we can engage them in different research activity types. So on the one hand we have like surveys we can ask them to participate in, but also we can engage them in forum discussions, in blog exercises, in ethnographical tasks, and everything is moderated on a daily basis by our local moderator, in this case Anja Hofmann. She's located in Warsaw and she's sourced through our global moderator network. So this to ensure that we had really the consumer at our fingertips. At the same time, we also needed to generate impact in the business, and also there we had like activation toolbox, not only to gain buy-in throughout the program for every decision that we take, but also to tap into internal expertise and existing knowledge. Central in this toolbox was our Insight Activation Studio. It's an online collaboration platform that we used as some kind of central hub that on the one hand was used to gather all knowledge that we have and all insights that we gathered on the pre- and after-sales journey in one central place. It was also a tool that we used to diffuse insights, learning, decisions made, and updates on the program with the broader stakeholder group. And finally, we also used this platform as a collaboration tool to build upon the learnings we shared, to ideate, and also to co-create and optimize our concepts. This Insight Activation Studio was complemented with quite some quality time with the core project team in workshopping, and we engaged the broader stakeholder group around the insights we gathered through team competitions and tasks, which I will come back to later on. In the first step, really the harvesting phase, we tried to map all existing knowledge. So we went to previous research, we did some desk research, we did a competitive analysis, trend research, and we also went out to the dealers because they are of course a really important touch point in the whole journey. We did dealer interviews to, on the one hand, assess what is the customer experience level or the customer centricity level today in the dealerships, and also to assess what are potential barriers that we will need to take away in order for a smooth rollout of our solutions. So everything that we knew on this pre and after sales journey, as well as what we defined as success criteria and barriers to overcome, everything was placed in one central place, the Insight Activation Studio. So once we knew what we already know, but also what were the knowledge gaps, we went to our consumers on the consumer consulting square, where we really started an explorative, qualitative deep dive with consumers on the pre and after sales journey. And also on our consumer consulting square, we have a rich toolbox of creative techniques that allow us to unlock deep insights, to make our consumers think harder, deeper and different, and to share everything that is relevant to be known about the customer journeys. One of those activities is, for instance, the mystery shopping. It's an ethnographical task where we ask consumers to go to their dealership, so not only the Volkswagen dealership, but also dealerships from competitors, and feed back to us how they experienced this visit to the dealer. What went well, what are barriers they encountered, what are the information gaps or lags that they still have after the visits, and so on, which provide us with rich insights on this dealership experience. After a 3-week deep dive on our community with our consumers, we came with what we call the 10 universal needs that appear along the pre and after sales journey in the automotive industry. And we have plotted those needs on the journey in the form of 26 jobs to be done, where one of them is indeed, I want to experience the car before I buy it. For every job to be done, we have like some kind of summary sheet where we explain what happens in the job, what is a primary need to focus on, what are secondary needs, what are frictions consumers experience in that job, and what are aspirations they might have for the job. We have complemented this external or consumer perspective with the internal perspective, such as what are the touch points we have today in this job, what would be a reason for us, for the business, to focus on this job, what can this bring to the business if we would start ideating on this job, and what are potential first ideas to solve some of the frictions we see in this job. With 26 jobs, we cannot tackle them all at once, so we need to have focus, and therefore we conducted a quantitative validation study with a large sample of consumers, where we assessed each of the 26 jobs on 3 dimensions. And one dimension is how relevant is this job for the consumers, so to what extent do consumers consider this job as an important moment of truth in the journey. On the other hand, how do we perform in this job, so are we overperforming or underperforming or just on par? And thirdly, what will be the business impact if we focus on this job, so how will this boost our acquisition and our retention rates? And based on those 3 dimensions, together with the business, we could select the jobs to focus on. Once you know which jobs to focus on, because in this first explorative phase we only scratch the surface, we can go back to our jobs and dig deeper and really come with a detailed mapping for the jobs we want to focus on. What are the sub-steps within this job? What is the emotional curve? And how do we perform on the touch points we have in this job available? Everything comes together in what we call the Strategize Workshop, where it really is about getting focus. Here we come together with the core stakeholder team. We share everything that we learned from the qualitative exploration phases, from the quantitative validation, and together with the business we decide on our focus. And we do this through this board game where we ask the stakeholders to vote and to argue why this would be a good job from a business perspective to focus on. And for Volkswagen Poland, this meant that we decided to first focus on 2 jobs linked to the pre-sales journey. On the one hand, because we knew from our quantitative validations that they would have a big impact on both sales conversion in the pre-sales and in the after-sales journey, and that they were important for the consumer, and that we were not really performing extremely well in those jobs. At the same time, we selected those jobs because they were because there was a lot of autonomy for Volkswagen Group Poland headquarters to work on these jobs, meaning that we did not need a lot of involvement of, for instance, the dealers in order to test them and to roll them out, because we knew from the interviews that before having these dealers adopting our new solutions, we needed to come with business proof, with business success, and show that this program and this approach really worked. In the second phase, we then focused on jobs that involve more engagement from our dealerships, and this was in the second phase when we already had some first proof points on the success of our first solutions. So once we have the focus, we go back to our community and we start ideating with consumers. Here again, we have different tools to make them think out of the box, to do some idea storming with consumers on our consumer consulting square. We have complemented this with ideation with internal stakeholders, so with the broader stakeholder group, and in order to do so, we asked them to really immerse in the jobs that we selected. So we asked them to step into the shoes of the consumer, to feel what consumers feel in each of those jobs through some kind of Consumer Connect program that was facilitated through our online collaboration platform. So we asked them to really experience what consumers experience and feed back their observations on the collaboration platform, as well as their first ideas. And finally, we engaged the creative crowd of the ICA community. It's a worldwide community of creatives that volunteer to participate in some kind of contest where they think around our challenge and come up with typically the more disruptive ideas, while internal stakeholders and consumers come with the quick wins, the low-hanging fruits. These creatives really think out of the box and can complement the ideas we have already from internal stakeholders and consumers. Again, everything comes together in a 2-day ideation workshop, where on the first day we really list all the ideas we have from the different crowds, from our consumers, internal stakeholders and the creatives. We cluster them in already ID platforms or ID groups. We start voting and we make a first selection on the ideas from a business point of view. Overnight, we screen those ideas with consumers, and the next day, on the second day of the workshop, at 10 o'clock, we come together and we have already a ranked selection of the ideas that we then use to develop concepts on. In this case, in this first round, we selected 11 ideas to work on that we fine-tuned together with consumers in agile and iterative feedback loops on our consumer consulting square, and every update of a concept was shared with the broader stakeholder group in our online collaboration tool which allowed them to also build on the learnings and to help fine-tuning these ideas and these concepts. Testing our concept on the community looks like this. So we show the concept with a visual, with the concept description, and we ask for feedback. And in terms of deliverable, we come with some kind of fact sheet where we give to what extent do people recognize the insight in our idea or in our concept, what needs do we address, what are the killer features that we definitely need to take to the next level in our funnel, what are barriers to buy or rebuy a Volkswagen that we remove with the concept, and what are potential routes for improvement. Today, those 11 concepts are now prototyped in some kind of live test environment. It's in the Volkswagen Home Concept Store in Warsaw, where we, together with real consumers in a real sales environment, test and optimize them, and at the same time gather first business results of our new solutions that will help us to roll out these solutions broadly into the network. To summarize, in this research program, we engaged more than 40 internal stakeholders. We identified 26 jobs to be done along the pre- and after-sales journey. We came up with more than 100 ideas per job, and for now we are prototyping 11 concepts in Volkswagen Home. And what was the learning for Arthur and his team? Well, I'll let him tell you himself.
I hope you enjoyed the webinar. I am pretty sure that the guys from Insights did an excellent job. Let me just do a quick recap for you. First, test fast. It is your strongest weapon, and always remember about the scalability of your solution and be ready to immediately spread them across the whole organization. Second, remember that neither you or anyone from your organization is the consumer. This is the voice you really need to listen. Third, let your team shine. You need ambassadors of the customer experience idea across your whole organization. So let everyone enjoy your projects and have their important part in them. And last but not least, never go too far from the insight. Remember that the insight you got from the consumer, and this is the most important voice for your company. Thank you, and have a great day. And have fun working with insights, just as we did at Volkswagen. Bye.
So, if you have questions, do not forget to ask them through the chatbots or send your email to this address. Do we have questions? Okay, first question, why do we need to prioritize on jobs to be done on needs? Well, what we see typically in service design is that we start from some kind of business opportunity, and that we start ideating on that, select and fine-tune our ideas and concepts with consumers in order to be as close as possible to the needs in those opportunity areas. The advantage of prioritizing on needs is that we already have the right focus, and we ensure that we will have the biggest business impact because we select those needs that are on the one hand the most important for consumers, but that are also leading to the biggest business impact. So by prioritizing much earlier in the funnel, we know that we focus on the right things for the consumer and for us as a business. Let me see if we have more questions. Nice story, but we are of course not all Volkswagen, that's true. So do we need to engage in this full program? Well, this is of course a program in the ideal world, and under the ideal circumstances, and we do realize that not all companies have the time or the resources to engage in this program. I can say that we do this also for other clients at a faster pace. So in terms, if we don't have the time, we can reduce we can come with some kind of light version and do the same program instead of in a few months, in a few weeks, and even in a few days, let's say as a customer journey revolution sprint in 10 days. But we also have clients for which we do only part of the program. For instance, clients that already have their IDs and have maybe already screened and assessed and ranked their IDs, they only use the Consumer Consulting Square to agilely and iteratively fine-tune up and optimize their concepts with us. So no, you don't have to do the full program. We can help you with parts of the program, or we can help you to shorten this program. And maybe a last question. What is the biggest barrier you encountered internally at Volkswagen, and how did you overcome it? Yes, well, I think the biggest barrier was engaging all the stakeholders, especially people not working at headquarters. It was not easy to get them in the program, and that's why from the beginning we first did the interviews. We also, well, with the dealers, we also pointed out like promoters and ambassadors, champions representing our dealers that participated in the workshopping at headquarters, but also engage their teams on a daily basis almost to participate in our activation activities and collaboration tool, the Insight Activation Studio. But this is definitely the hardest part, to get everybody on board, convince them of the importance of the program and the importance to hear their voice in this whole program. This is definitely not easy to do, and it is a hard job, but by having this cascade and the right tools in place, it's possible to also bring in those voices. Okay, one more last question. Consumers sometimes do not know what they want, or they do not know how to express what they mean or feel. How do you deal with this situation? Yes, that's true, and that's why we have in our consumer consulting square, we have this toolbox where we try to tap into maybe more implicit needs and insights by engaging in ethnographical tasks, in making consumers think out of the box and sharing with us information that they are maybe not aware of, that they share it with us. So it's definitely not only about asking questions, but it's also about looking at behavior and derive from that some needs and unmet needs. So I think that's it for now in terms of questions. If you would have more questions, do not hesitate to mail them to this email address. And if you had a question that I did not address today, we will come back to that question later on in a one-on-one conversation. Thanks for listening. I'm also happy to share that we are working on a book scene on this story and more cases that will be released soon. So if you are interested in receiving this book scene, please register by going to this website and leaving your contact details there. So for now, it's I only can say thank you for listening. Let's talk soon, and if you would have any other question, feel free to reach out to me or to Christophe. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye bye.